Good evening. We're up to Shabbos Ayin Gimel. Baruch Hashem, one of the most iconic Mishnayos that we know of. It is the actual list of 39 malachos. We're not quite there. We have another 30 lines or so. We're right now on Ayin Gimel and Aleph, about 10 lines down at the two dots. And we've been learning about this concept of misasek, where I do an action, my intentions are not bad. The result is bad, but my intentions are very good. So yesterday we learned a case, if you want to glance back to the top of Ayin Beis and Beis, we learned about a case where there was a machlokas between Rav and Abaye, where I intended to cut something that was already severed from the ground, and accidentally, inadvertently, I had cut something which was still connected to the ground. I had intended to cut talush, and instead I cut mechubar. So there we said that Rava held pater and Abaye held chayev. Now that's an important starting point, because we're going to see now two more machlokos between Abaye and Rava, very, very similarly toned, in that it appears that you didn't intend to do something wrong, but the result was bad. And we see the same machlokas three times in a row. And of course, that will beg the question in the Gemara about why all the repetitive nature. Just to look at it from a little bit of a historical perspective, if Rava is going to teach the din three times in a row, it kind of probably means he gave shir on this topic. That's historically speaking probably what happened, is that he gave shir, either one long shir about each of these three sugyas, one that we saw yesterday about the talush and mechubar, and the two more for today. So we have to figure out why was Rava being duplicitous in his comments? Why bother saying the same din three times? The first one we saw yesterday. Let's see number two. Number two, Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph. The next machlokas Abaye and Rava, about 10 lines down. Itmar. Niskaven lizrok shtayim v'zorak arba. Let's say that I'm outside in a Reshus Harabim, and I'm playing catch with a child of mine, but I only intend to throw 2 amos of the 4. So that's not an isser, that's mutter. That's not an isser doraisa. I only intended to throw 2. That was niskaven lizrok shtayim v'zorak arba. Never know your own strength, and I launched it, and it went over Dalet Amos. That's beyond the chiyuv. Once someone moves something more than Dalet Amos B'Reshus Harabim, so then that's seemingly an Isser D'Oraisa. So here, the reason why there's even a question to start with, of course, is because of intent. His intent was only to do 2 amos. So that's a machlokas Rava and Abaye. Rava Amar Pater, Abaye Amar Chayev. Rava Amar Pater. Why did Rava say your Pater? Deloka Mechav in this Rika Arba. What was your intention? What was your mindset? My mindset was only to throw 2 amos. Unfortunately, I threw it further. It rolled, whatever the case may be. But there, Rava says you're still pater. That sounds eerily similar to the case that we saw in Ayin Beis of Beis at the top, where my intention was to cut that which was talush, that which was already severed from the ground, but I inadvertently cut that which was still connected to the ground. The mechubar seems similar. And still more, we're going to understand Abaye's sheet and then see a third sheet, Abaye. Why did Abaye say that you'd be chayiv in the case of niskavin lizrok shtayim v'zorak arba? Abaye Amar chayiv zakam lizrika be'alma. Like yesterday, your intention was to throw, just like yesterday. Your intention was to cut. The fact that you inadvertently cut something, or in this case threw something, you still had kavanah to throw. So therefore, Abaye holds you're still chayiv. Abaye Amar chayiv zakam lizrika be'alma. Okay, that's case 2. Here's case 3. Kasava reshus hayachid v'nimtzeis reshus harabim. Let's say that I'm playing sports in the backyard with my kids, fenced in. Now, unbeknownst to me, for whatever magical reason, my backyard ended up, all the walls fell down, and I didn't notice. And it was really a Reshus Harabim. I'm playing catch back and forth, throwing the football. I thought it was Reshus Hayachid, but I was throwing more than Dalet Amos intentionally. So let's see how the Gemara plays this out. The Nimtzeis Reshus Harabim, 1/3 of the way down on Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, says the Gemara, Rava Amar Pater, the Abaye Amar Chayev. Why does Rava say you're pater? Rava Amar Pater, dehalo mechaven lizrika de isura. I did intend to throw, but I was not mechaven for zrika de isura. I wasn't planning on violating. I was playing catch with my kid. I didn't realize the walls had fallen down, and really my Reshus Hayachid became a Reshus Harabim. I just wasn't aware. So I did something wrong as a result, but in the mindset, nothing was wrong. Abaye Amar Chayev. Why does Abaye say you're chayev? Because you needed to, you still intended to throw. Now, all 3 of these cases are very similar in concept. Again, I'm going to repeat the 3 cases because we're going to now analyze each of them and compare them to one another as to why we need all 3. The first case, as we saw in the top of Ayin Beis and Beis, was I intended to cut something which was talush, something which was already cut off of a tree, and accidentally I cut something that was mechubar that was attached. The second case was that I intended to throw 2 amos in a reshus harabim and I accidentally threw 4. And the third case was I threw more than 4 amos in what I thought was a reshus hayachid, but really it was a reshus harabim. In all three of these cases, Rava says you're pater and Abaye says you're chayiv. So says the Gemara vitzricha. What does the word vitzricha mean? We only see this construct in the Gemara when we have a list of things, when we have multiple items that seem to be duplicitous in their nature. Why have all three in this case? So the Gemara answers very cleanly and very clearly. Vitzricha, we need all three cases. If I only had the first case of intending to cut talush but accidentally cutting mechubar, there Rabba would have said your pater, because there you had no intention of doing anything asur at all. However, when it comes to throwing 2 amos within 4 amos, so there you weren't intentionally violating anything. However, the arba below tarte lo mizrakale, it's impossible to get to 4 amos without first throwing 2. So therefore, unlike in the case of talush, where your entire intention and act should have been pater, here there's no way to get to 4 amos without going the first 2 amos. Hava mina, maybe I would have thought that Rava would have capitulated to the opinion of Abaye and said that you're chayev. No, we therefore needed case number 2. Abaye, maybe Rava would have agreed to Abaye that you're chayev in such a case because you went to 2 amos. No, says the Gemara, no, therefore we have both cases, therefore Rava taught both cases. The Ashmin and Beha, right in the middle of the page, and if we only had case 2, where I threw 2 amos, where I intended to throw 2 amos, but I threw 4, I might have argued, Bahaka Amar Rava, only there would Rava say your pater, the halo kamechavein lizrika de arba, because there, at least my intention was only to throw 2. But in the third case, aval kasab reshus hayachid v'nimsa reshus harabim, my football throws more than Dalet Amos, and I threw it more than Dalet Amos, and I intended to throw it more than Dalet Amos. So maybe, therefore, d'mechavin lezrika de'arba ema modele l'Abaye, therefore, tzricha. So Rava needed to teach all 3 of these dinim. Maybe Abaye didn't need all 3, but Rava certainly needed all 3 of these dinim. And just to scale them up, the most lenient of the cases is the case of the talush, because his intention was to cut talush, and that was his whole aspiration. It was just an accident that he cut mechubar. The second case, he threw 2 amos of the 4, which is like encroaching. It's more than the previous case, which is that I did 2 amos of the 4. That was my intention. My intentions were worse here. And then the third case, my intentions were even worse, which was that I intended to throw more than Daled. So in all of those cases, in cases 2 and 3, we thought that maybe Rava would backtrack and agree to the sheet of Abaye that Yechayev Kamash Malan, that is not the case. But the Gemara here, again, a little bit more than halfway down, has a little bit of a theoretical problem with the Shita of Rava. And the problem with Rava is that when are you chayav a shogeg? Think about all these cases. They're mistaken cases that Rava says you're pater. You're pater when you accidentally cut mechubar. You're pater when you accidentally throw 4 amos, and you're pater when you. So then where do we ever have a case of shogeg according to Rava? Shogeg, where is there a korban chatas on Shabbos? We have Mishnayos, we're going to see one right now that speaks about it. So we have a conceptual problem with the Shita of Rava that we have to figure out. And we've seen this exact language 2 times already. Now we'll see it for the 3rd time as it applies to the Shita of Rava. Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah, Avos malachos arbaim chasarachas. We know, as we're about to see, b'fem male, all of the 39 malachos, and when we analyze it, minyan lamali, why is there a specific number? Answers the Gemara in the name of Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan, shimasa and kulam behelam echad, Rav Yochanan explains this Mishnah, that the reason why the Mishnah had to delineate the number 39 is because we had to make sure that we understood that if a person violated all 39, he'd be chayav al kol echad ve'echad, al kol achas ve'achas. So bishlam Abaye, I could understand how we could get to such a scenario whereby you'd be obligated al kol echad ve'echad to bring a korban to bring a korban on all 39 of these malachos. In the cases above, the 3 cases above where he says that you're chayav mishkachas la, the yada the isura Shabbos, the yada la iser malachos to kata b'shiurin. I could come up with a scenario where I made a mistake. I didn't carry out a large enough amount or whatever. That by Abaye we have that as a possibility, because by Abaye he says you're chayav in these 3 cases, and from there it's easy to get to a case of shogeg. However, Ela the Rava Damar Pater, Rava, who said that all of these cases that look like accidents, that really should be chayev to bring a korban, in all three of those cases, Rava says you're pater. So just on a theoretical plane, where would Rava fit with this Mishnah to say that you could ever be chayev al kol achas v'achas? All of the mistakes that we would have conceived of, they could easily be included in one of these three cases where Rava says you're pater. I didn't mean to do a malacha. I didn't mean to cut the grass. I meant to pick up the knife. I could come up with 1,000 examples. So according to Rava, where do we ever have a case that you're chayiv on all of these 39 malachos, like this Mishnah says? So it must be that according to Rava, that it would be bezadon Shabbos b'shigigas malachos. The only way that it's ever possible is to say that the shigaga was on the malacha itself. So says the Gemara, going back to yet another machlokes that we've learned. Hanicha, I could understand this approach for Rava. Yisavar like Rav Yochanan. If he held like the opinion of Rav Yochanan, like we learned a couple of blot ago in regards to the scope of how we define shogeg. And there, Rav Yochanan said, the Amar, Kevan sheshagag b'kares afapisha hezid v'lav, that if what you misunderstood about Shabbos was that there's a chiyuv kares, you didn't realize, but you did the lav with intent. So yeah, then we can have a theoretical case according to Rava, where a case where he would normally say chayiv because you did the act on purpose. Now I want to cut mechubar and I'm cutting mechubar, but I just forgot that there's kares. Fine. Then Rava has a theoretical possibility of where the chiyuv would be and where the shogeg would be. That's only true though if he holds like the opinion of Rav Yochanan. We could come up with that scenario where you know that you're violating an isser, you know you're violating one of the 39 malachos, you just don't know that there's an isser kares, that there's an ownership of kares. However, if Rava really held of the opinion of Rav Shimon ben Lakish, then we're back to our question of wherever would we find a case according to Rava that is the case of shogeg. So because what did Rav Shimon ben Lakish hold? There, the shogeg has to be with the action too. But we just saw all of these three cases where Rava's threshold for ptur is very low. It's very easy to be exempted, to not be chayiv achatas. So there, what the yada l'Shabbos b'may? In what case would we find out that Rava would say you're chayiv in certain cases and you're shogeg in others? So there, the Gemara answers like we saw earlier, the yada la betchumen v'aliba derbakiba, that we could come up with a scenario where where Rava would hold, even Rava would work within Rav Yochanan, but even within Rav Shimon ben Lakish, he would work according to Rav Shimon ben Lakish in regards to the world of tchumen, because as we pointed out a couple of blot ago, that the tchumen are not listed among the 39 malachos yet, according to Rabbi Akiva, they are an Isser Dorais. And in such a case, we could generate a shogeg. So this question is now answered, and that brings us, Baruch Hashem, to the Mishnah, Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, most of the way down. Says the Mishnah, there are 39 Avos Malacha. Avos Malacha Arba'im Chaser Achas. There are 39 of them. Now, the first 11 of them are given the title of Sidura de Pas. Sidura de Pas, the Seder of making bread. They are almost linear in nature, as the Gemara is going to ask on some of the orders. Some things are out of order. We're going to have to question that. But let's get started with the Sidura de Pas, the 11 that bring us from planting something into the ground all the way to making bread. Hazoreya, one who plants. Hachoresh, one who plows. Out of order. Can't plant it until you plow. Gemara is going to ask that question. V'akotzer, someone who harvests. V'hame'amer, someone who gathers the harvest into a pile. The poskim discuss cases. Can you play 52-card pickup on Shabbos? It's me'amer. Interesting shaila. V'hadash, someone who is going to crack the kernel out of the chaff from the wheat. So they have a little, on the top, they have that little flour-looking thing at the top, and there's a kernel inside of there. So you're cracking it, basically, you're hitting it with something in order to separate the chaff just enough so that when you throw it up for the next step, to winnow, you throw it up in the air, the chaff, the lighter parts will be blown away by the wind, and then the kernels will fall back down, and you will have separated away all the chaff. Borer. And then borer, of course, as we know, is the Isser on Shabbos to separate. Under what circumstances? We know that it has to be, there are three conditions. We're going to see in the Gemara, very, very unique Gemara for psak purposes. We'll come to in the next many plot. Tochen, you're going to grind up the wheat. V'hamaraked, you're going to sift the flour. V'halosh, you're going to make something into, you're going to knead something, making it into dough. So how do we define kneading? Is pancake batter, which is very watery, is that considered to be a mixture? Someone in my house had to take a medicine that was made out of a powder. So if it makes the water a little thicker, is that lush? Does it have to be pasty like dough? So a lot of shilas to answer. And of course, baking. Is baking different than bishul, which is cooking with the liquid medium? Is that different than tigun, which is frying? Is that different than sli? Do they all fall under the same exact parameter, the same isser? Do all of them fall under ofa? The Mishnah only mentions ofa, only mentions baking. So we have to get into all of these shilas. And those are the first 11 that gets us up to the process of making the lechem hapanim in the Beis Hamikdash. Remember that whenever we speak about the Isser Malacha on Shabbos, we're talking about that which was done in the Mishkan, either to build the Mishkan or to make the Mishkan functional. And we needed the showbreads, we needed the lechem hapanim every day, and that required Sidur de Pas. Now, not all of them happened in the Beis Hamikdash. The fields were not in the Beis Hamikdash where they planted and plowed, but it doesn't make a difference what the location is necessarily. We learn from the Mishkan, from the need for the Mishkan to function as it does. So we learn from there that that these 11 are usher. Let's continue. Hagozes etzatzemer, shearing wool. How does that apply to a human? Brushing your hair. We spoke about this a while ago. You have to have a special brush for your hair. One's special for Shabbos. It has to be very soft bristles. Can't pull out your hair. Is that an Isser D'Oraisa or an Isser D'Rabbanan? Gozes. What about cutting your nails? Is that considered this kind of gozes? Pulling your skin, biting skin on your lips. So many shilas come up as it relates to these klalim in the Mishnah, because these are just the headers. The 39 malachos are just the beginning points of conversation. They're not the end point. We don't have a Beis Hamikdash, but we still have all of these isurim. So can you bite the skin on your lip? That's a big problem. If you have that habit for people who bite their nails on Shabbos, that's a big problem. So they made this little nail polish that tastes terrible. Apparently, I'm not tempted by it, but there are people who will put on this nail polish on Shabbos so that they don't bite their nails, because it could be a problem. One of the shilas that comes up is if a woman has to go to the mikvah Friday night and she forgot to cut her nails. So the poskim discuss what's the best thing to do. To cut your nails is mamish asur. So the poskim come up with some crazy solutions that avoid using a kli, because to use a kli it could be a real problem. So one of the recommendations, this would never happen nowadays, one of the recommendations is if someone has a Shabbos guy who's willing to bite her nails off, the guy would bite off the nails. That's the one recommendation. The poskim came up with like crazy loopholes to avoid gozes, to avoid these concerns. Hamelabno is to bleach the wool. V'hamenapso, to comb out the wool. V'hatzovo, to dye the wool. V'hatava, to make it into a string. V'hamesach, to lay out the rope on top of the loom in order to make it into a fabric. Ve'osa shtei batei nirin. This is a very detailed nuance in regards to the construction of a loom in order to make a fabric. And we'll discuss this more later. Ve'haoreg shnei chutin. Anyone who threads together or kind of ties, not really tying knots, but kind of stitches together shnei chutin, v'hapotzea shnei chutin, and as well someone who undoes two knots of a thread, hakosher v'hamatir, tying knots and untying knots. This is an interesting shaila, because do we say that everything that's the opposite of kosher is matir by definition? If there's an isser of kosher and I tie that knot, is there also an isser of matir automatically, or are the parameters of kosher not necessarily the opposite of matir? We'll have to get into that. The tofer shtei tfiros, someone who is going to stitch two things together. What's the difference between this and oreg? We'll have to get into that. Hakorei almanas litfor shtei tfiros, and as well to tear a little bit in order to make two more stitches. To undo some stitches to make room for more. And that takes us through all of the garments. Next, hatzod tzvi, to trap an animal. Hashochto, to slaughter an animal. This gets into shilas. Can you trap bees on Shabbos? The Shulchan Aruch discusses this, and the Mishnah Berurah paskins it's mutar to catch mosquitoes and bees on Shabbos, because are they considered chai? A whole big shilah about what the din is there. V'hamafshito, to be mafshit an animal is to skin an animal. That's considered problematic, of course. Hamolcho, to salt an animal is not allowed. V'hama'abed is oro, to tan leather on Shabbos is a problem. Hamamachko, to smooth out the leather. Hamachatcho, to cut them into measured pieces. That's also problematic. Hakosef shtei osios, someone who writes two letters is violating the Isser. V'hamochik almanas lichtov shtei osios. If you erase something, not just if you erase, but if you erase something on the condition to write two other letters, that would be problematic. Habona, to build something is usher. We'll see examples of this in the Gemara today. Vehasoser, to destroy something. Hamechabe, to extinguish. Vehamavir, to light a fire. Why is mechabe extinguishing before the fire? You can't extinguish what is not yet a fire. This is also out of order. I think the Bali Tosfos picked up on this on the top of the next page. They speak about this. Can't remember exactly where it is. Let's see if I'll remember when we get there. Hamake bepatish, Makeh b'patish is a very global type of prohibition where it is the last thing that makes that kli then functional. So we had a garbage can years ago where the top of the garbage can would swivel. You'd push it in and it would kind of swivel down and then just level itself out. It's supposed to stay there, but ours was broken. And every time we put it in, within a half a day, someone would throw something out and the whole thing would fall out again. So to put it in there in the first place, when it's really supposed to be permanent, is makeh b'patish. However, if it's something that's a suya lakach, or even in this case, which was very much not a suya lakach, but at least now that's how it functions. So maybe that's not makeh b'patish. That could be a problem. We spoke about the shaila once already about putting in shoelaces on Shabbos. So if the shoelaces had already been in the shoe and then they fell out, you can put them back. But if the shoelaces have never been in the shoe, then you putting in the shoelaces makes the shoe functional. That's makeh b'patish. That could be an isur d'oraisa. Continuing in the Gemara, the very last of the 39 malachos, last line of Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, Hamotzi mirishus l'rishus harei elu avos malachos arbaim chaser achas. Why doesn't it say Dalad Amos Birshus Harabim? Hamotzi mirishus l'rishus is only one of the types of isurim that one can violate as it relates to being in a public domain, which is when you transfer from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim. Why doesn't the Mishnah discuss that case? We have to speak about that too. Okay, let's get started. We're on the top of Ayin Gimel Amud Beis. Let's dig into the Gemara. Minyano lamali. Why is it that we have a specific number? This we've learned 50 times already in the Masechta. Amar Rav Yochanan Shimasan Kulam B'Hal Mechad Chayva Kalachas Ve'achas, to teach us that the number is specific, so that if a person in fact violated all of them, they would be chayiv on all 39. Hazoreh ve'achoresh, says the Gemara. Michdi, let's see. A michra of karbe beresha. How are you putting anything into the ground without first digging up the ground? You first have to plow. How are you planting without plowing? You're just dropping it on top. That's not how it works. If you've ever driven through southern Illinois or through Wisconsin, when you see all the cornfields, there's these perfect furrows that are made by that machine, and then the machine throws in seeds, and then it goes back and covers it all over. So what are you talking about? Plowing before planting? Answers the Gemara. Listening choresh v'hadar. Sorry, the Gemara continues its question. Listening choresh v'hadar. Listening to zorei. The Mishnah should reverse itself and have choresh first. Answers the Gemara. Tana be'eretz Yisrael koi. The zari beresha v'hadar karbe. There, the ground was very, very hard, so they would plow and then plant and then plow again, something along those lines. But the ground was very hard. It's not always a rain season there, so the ground has been lacking rain for a long time. So that's why the Mishnah was reversed, because they were talking. The Tana must have been in Eretz Yisrael who was teaching this Mishnah. Tana Eretz Yisrael. Fifth line, Tana. We have a source in the Tanaim. Hazoreya, one who plants. V'hazomer, one who prunes. V'hanoteya, this is planting a small tree, not dissimilar to planting a seed, but same ballpark. V'hamavrech v'hamarki, these are two types of grafting of trees. Kula, and all of them, melacha achas. They're all treated as one melacha. They're not one melacha in its category, obviously. It's not taking away zomer versus noteya, but what it is saying is that they are considered to be one iser. Okay, my kamashmalan, what does that teach us? Hakamashmalan ha'osem melachos harbe if I do notea 100 times, if I do zorea 100 times, if I do the grafting, if I do them one after the other, it's all going to be lopped into one chiyuv chatas. So that's the importance of understanding the categorizations, to recognize that there are things that are very similar. And maybe we would not have thought that planting something is the same as zomer, as pruning. But as we'll see shortly, what pruning does is you're cutting off the dead weight. You're enabling a tree to grow better. So because you're doing that, that's really not dissimilar to planting. So that's why they're treated as the same. I mean, we would not have necessarily made all of these assumptions on our own, which is why it's important that the Tanaim have given us the parameters here. Amar Rav Acha, Amar Rav Chia, Barashi, Amar Rav Ami. Zomer chayev mishum notea, a person who does pruning, they're going to be liable for notea, for planting a sapling, because you're making room for that tree to grow. Notea, one who plants a sapling, v'hamavrich, v'hamarki, these two types of grafting, chayev mishum zorea, both of them are chayev under the larger umbrella of zorea. Asks the Gemara, mishum zorea in, mishum notea lo, are you saying that there's a distinction between zorea and notea? We already said that they're the same thing. They're in the same league, and they get only one chiyuv if you violate multiple types of isurim that are of the same genre. Says the Gemara, no, I didn't mean that. Ema af mishum zorea. But again, this is not to teach us that there will be separate chiyuvim. It's only to teach us that they're very, very similar in their nature. So pruning is very, very similar to planting, and that it enables something to grow. So once we understand, this is very important for taking things to the level of the Rishonim and to the level of Psak Halacha. Once we understand the nakuda, the depth of a malacha, then we can apply it. If the depth of a malacha is helping something grow, so then planting and pruning are one and the same. And in fact, there's a machlokas in the Rishonim about whether or not watering a plant, what is that isser? Is that choresh because it helps the soil? Or is it zorea because it helps the plant? So we have to really understand the heart of the matter for each of these malachos in order to learn how to apply it. We'll see another example of this shortly. Continues the Gemara. Amar of Kahana, 1/3 of the way down, Ein Gimel Amud Beis. Amar of Kahana, Zomer, B'tzarech le'etzim chayv shtayim. A person who prunes, but you're not only pruning in order to make room for the tree to grow, you're also pruning because you're tzarech le'etzim, you want the wood that you're cutting off. So then you're chayv shtayim, then you violated two different isurim. Why? Chayv shtayim, achas mishum kotzer, v'achas mishum noteya. One, because of the kotzer, because when you're harvesting, you want that which you harvest. Zomer, alone in a vacuum, when I'm pruning only to remove the dead weight, that's not kotzer because I'm not harvesting, I don't need it. But when I need it, so then it's kotzer, and then on top of the fact that it's kotzer, it's still enabling that tree to grow more, and therefore I've also violated noteya. Amar Rav Yosef, Haiman de Kotel Aspisa, Chayev Shtayim, someone who is cutting straw, they too, it's a certain type of straw, they too are going to be chayev, liable for two achas mishum kotzer, ba'achas mishum noteya, with a similar logic that the cutting has a double benefit. It's making room for more to grow, and I also want the straw. Same exact idea. Amar Abaye, Haiman de Kaniv Silka, someone who is going to cut a beet while, says Rashi, still attached to the ground. So that person who does that is chayev shtayim. Why are they chayev shtayim? Doesn't cutting it ruin it? You're cutting a fruit in the middle of a tomato, in the middle of a beet. Says the Gemara, achas mishum kotzer ve'achas mishum zorea. You're chayev on kotzer because when you cut the beet, you want to eat it, and you're chayev on zorea because apparently, as beets grow, if you cut them, they will regrow. Okay, so that's why you're going to be chayev on all of them. Let's dig into some inyane choresh, and this will lead to some very halacha l'maisa discussions before we close out tonight. Choresh, what about plowing? Halfway down. Tana, we are taught in the Tanoim. Hachoresh, vehachofer, vehachoretz, kulam melacha achasein. If a person plows, if a person digs, if a person makes a ditch in the ground, all of them are melacha achas, just like we learned by the previous collection of things that had to do with planting. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Sheshes, Haiselo Gav Shushis, if there was a mound of dirt, remember that the houses were made out of dirt, they don't have our floors. So their houses were made out of dirt, v'natla, and then you remove that Gav Shushis, you remove the mound of dirt. Listen to this. Babayis, if it's in your house, so then what are you doing to your house? You're fixing your house. You don't want a mound of dirt in your house. So babayis chayev mishum bona. In your house, you're fixing your house. That's bona. You're building your house into a better house. So if there's a mound of dirt in your dirt house and you flatten it, well, that's a problem because you're making your house beautiful. That's bona. However, basadeh, if the same exact maisa were to be done in a field, then you have a different chiyuv, chayev mishum choresh. Then that's considered plowing because you're preparing the ground. So this leads to an Isser Doraisa, which is not so uncommon in our backyards, in our whenever we are playing on grass, whatever the case may be, which is a din called mashve gumos. Let's say that you're playing a game that requires that the dirt be very, very flat. So if it needs to be flat, you're trying to throw grounders to someone, and it hits this little bump. So you walk over to the bump and you stomp on it to make it flat. That's an Isser Doraisa. That's a tolda of Choresh, because you're flattening out something on the ground, which is a tolda of Choresh. That's outside. If it's inside the house, we don't have dirt homes, but let's say we're living in a tent for Shabbos, and you're flattening it, that's bona. And it's just critical to recognize that the same Maisa could be flipped on what its Isser it is. It could be Choresh and it could be bona. It just depends on the context. So very, very important instructional Gemara here. Next case, Amar Rava, Haisalo Guma Utamama. Let's say it was inverted. You didn't have a mound of dirt, you had a hole in the ground, and you filled it up with dirt. So in such a case, Babayis Chayv Mishum Boneh, Besade Mishum Choresh. In both cases, you'll have the respective onshin, the respective violations of the avos. If it's in your house, it's boneh, because you're not trying to prepare the ground for planting. You're trying to get rid of the hole that's in your living room. So you put some dirt in there. But if it's outdoors, what you're doing is preparing the ground for planting, and that's going to be choresh. Amar Rabbi Abba, hachofer guma b'Shabbos ve'eno tzarech ela le'ofra. Let's say that a person is digging a hole on Shabbos, and you don't need the hole. You only need the dirt. And we're assuming here, although the Gemara doesn't say that this is in your house, and we'll see in a moment why this is critical, that it's in your house, pater aleha, no problem at all. Now, we've been learning this Masechta for some 70 some odd blot. We've learned the machlokas between Rav Shimon and Rav Yehuda in regards to malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. When a person digs, but they dig with an ulterior motive, not with the primary motive in mind, so then Rav Shimon says you're patur in such a case, and Rav Yehuda says you're chayiv. What is a classic example that's given? The classic example that's given is when you dig a hole for the dirt instead of for the hole. And yet look at the next words here. Ve'afilu the Rav Yehuda, even according to Rav Yehuda, the Amar Malacha she'ein tzricha legufa chayev aleha, even he who normally holds that when I'm digging for an ulterior motive, you're still chayev, here he's going to say you're patur. Hani mili, when does Rav Yehuda say that you're chayev for digging a hole with a secondary motive? Hani mili mitaken, that's when you're trying to do something that's positive. You're trying to fix something, you need the dirt for something else. But here, hi, mikalkelhu, but it's in your house. Someone who's digging a hole in their dining room is because they need the dirt. That's not mitaken. That's not helpful to your house. Let's say you're digging out the dirt in order to use the dirt to put out a fire, if that were to be mutter under certain circumstances, it may be. So then that's not the isra of malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who would normally hold chayiv. Here, that's not the case, because since you're digging in your house, it is mekalkel, you're being destructive. And in general, mekalkel is patur. Whenever you do something destructive, then we would not say that you are chayiv. 2/3 of the way down, v'hakotzer, Tana, the Tanoim teach us, hakotzer, habotzer, v'hagoder, v'hamasik, v'haora. All of these are basically harvesting with different types of fruits and vegetables. They're just different words. It's different agricultural words that apply to different types of fruits. So the kotzer is by wheat, and botzer is by grapes. Okay, some of them are by dates. All of them, kulan malacha achas. Again, giving us the parameters that anything that's very similar in its function, in its core function, we treat them as the same. Amar Papa, Haiman, this person's got very good aim. The Shada Pisa the Dikla, the Asar Tamre. He took a clod of dirt and he threw it at a date tree and he knocked dates off the tree. Chayev Shtayim. This guy has a good arm and he is also going to have to bring 2 korbanos. Achas Mishum Tolesh, one because he separated something from the tree. Achas Mishum Mefarek, because when it hits the ground, it breaks up into pieces and that itself is problematic. You're pulling things off the tree. Okay, says Rav Ashi, I disagree with you. Rav Ashi Amar, Ein derech talisha bekach. What are you, an archer?
So
this is, sorry?
I'm sorry. Is there any problem with that fruit?
The fruit? Yeah, there is a problem with the fruit because we typically assume that any Isser Malacha that took place on Shabbos, you're not allowed to have Hana from it until after Shabbos, in a time frame of what's called Bichdei Sheyasu. I think this came up twice in the Masechta so far, maybe 3 times. And Bichdei Sheyasu is that you have to wait long enough such that that thing could have happened after Shabbos lets out. Now, it doesn't take a long time to pull something off a tree, but yes, there would be an Isser Malacha. There's a big discussion in the Gemara, 3-way machlokas tanaim that we're going to get to. I don't know where it is in the Masechta, but maybe we got to it already. I can't remember. About the Isser Malacha, about whether or not if it's b'shogeg, if it's b'mezid, a whole bunch. Rav Yochanan Asanar is one of the Tanaim. We'll get there, but yes, one would not be allowed to eat those fruits, certainly according to Rav Papa. However, Rav Ashi says that you're patur here, so that may change things, but certainly according to Rav Papa would be a problem. Rav Ashi Amar, ein derech talisha bekach, ve'ein derech brika bekach. It's not. You're not allowed to pull things off a tree. You're not allowed to intentionally throw a rock against a tree to knock down fruits. That's not allowed. But if in fact you did, you would not have violated Mr. Daraisa. And to your point, Yoni, you would not be allowed to eat that food either because you'd have to wait until after Shabbos. Veha me'amer, one who is gathering. We pointed out in the process of Sidura Depas that after the wheat has been cut from the ground, it's an Isser Deoraisa to gather it up into a pile. So there, let's see some scope about what that means. Amar Rava, Haiman dekonif milcha mimalachta. Let's say you go to a place like the Dead Sea where there's a significant concentration of salt, and you go down there to collect a pile of salt on Shabbos. You need it for, remember we spoke about you can put salt in your mouth if your tooth hurts, and we said that it's not usher to do that because you're eating a food. It doesn't look like refuah, so it's permissible. So can I go collect a whole bunch of salt on Shabbos from the Dead Sea? Am I allowed to do that? It says the Gemara, no, you're not. Amar Rava, Haiman dekonif milcha mimalachta chayev mishum me'amer. You're not allowed to do that, says Rava, because you're gathering, you're making things into a pile, and it's similar to the case of gathering the wheat, as mentioned in our Mishnah and Sidura Depas, in the process of making bread. 6 lines from the bottom, Abaye Omar, and with this we'll close out tonight, a very important principle, one that we paskin like, Ein imor ela begidule karka. You cannot violate the Isser of imor unless it is something that grows from the ground. And salt, while there are salt deposits that may well be natural, but those are not mechubar lekarka. They don't have roots. We don't have to water them. They're just a natural deposit. It's like finding aluminum in the ground. It's finding something elemental in the ground. We don't water it. It's there. And if one were to gather something that's not gidulei karka, something that doesn't grow from the ground, so then that would not be a problem. I mentioned it in the beginning of this Mishnah on the previous Amma, that there are poskim who speak about like playing 52 card pickup and such shilas. That would not be on a doraisa level. At the most, first of all, we don't poskim that way bichlal. But the shilas that are coming up, cleaning up a mess on Shabbos. Next time somebody asks you to clean up Lego, I'm sorry, I cannot clean up Legos on Shabbos. It's me'amer, you're not allowed. That's not true, because this is only by gidulei karka. But there are some scenarios that kind of look a little shady that we would have to get into in the poskim. But here, according to Abaye, and again we paskin like this shita, is that ein imor el begidulei karka, that there's no issur of gathering things unless they are naturally grown from the ground. We'll wrap up here and pick up in Hashem tomorrow night. Have a great night.